The hungry little girl asked a billionaire, "Do you have any leftovers?" But what he did next made everyone in that restaurant cry. The rain hammered against the crystal windows of Lumiere, the most expensive restaurant in Manhattan, where a single meal could cost more than most families earned in a month. Inside, beneath chandeliers that sparkled like captured starlight, wealthy patrons savored their truffle-infused delicacies and vintage wines, completely oblivious to the world outside their gilded sanctuary. But on this particular November evening, something was about to happen that would shatter the comfortable bubble of luxury forever. Something that would be recorded on dozens of phones, shared millions of times across social media, and ultimately change the lives of everyone present in ways they could never have imagined. It started with a small hand pressing against the rain-streaked glass, a face that would haunt the conscience of a nation, and a question so simple, yet so devastating, that it would bring a billionaire to his knees. This is the story of 7-year-old Emma Martinez and Marcus Wellington III, two souls from opposite ends of the economic spectrum whose collision would reveal the most profound truth about wealth, poverty, and what it truly means to be human. Before we begin, please kindly subscribe to this channel, like, comment, and share this story so it can reach hearts across the world. They say money can buy almost anything, except peace, love, and purpose. In a city where luxury masks loneliness and billionaires dine beneath crystal chandeliers while families sleep in their cars, one man's life was about to change forever because of a little girl who asked just one question. 7-year-old Emma Martinez had learned to be invisible. In the 3 months since her mother had lost her job at the textile factory, Emma had perfected the art of making herself small, quiet, and unnoticeable. She had stopped asking for things she wanted. Then she stopped asking for things she needed. And finally, on the worst days, she even stopped asking for food. Her mother, Sophia Martinez, had once been so different. Emma remembered a time when Mama would sing while cooking dinner, when their small apartment smelled like arroz con pollo and fresh tortillas, when bedtime meant stories and laughter instead of tears muffled into a pillow that Mama thought Emma couldn't hear. That was before Papa died. Before the medical bills that consumed their savings like a hungry monster. Before the eviction notice. Before they started living in Mama's old Honda Civic, parked in different spots each night to avoid the police who would ask questions they couldn't answer. Emma had become an expert at reading her mother's face. She could tell the difference between the tired that meant Mama had applied for 10 jobs that day and the tired that meant Mama had given up hope. She learned which questions made Mama cry and which ones made her try to smile, even though the smile never quite reached her eyes anymore. Today was a bad day. Emma could tell because Mama had been parked outside this fancy restaurant for 3 hours, just staring at the steering wheel with that blank expression that scared Emma more than anything else. They hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. Half a bagel they'd found in a donation box outside a church, split between them. Emma's stomach had stopped growling hours ago. Now it just ached, a hollow pain that made her feel dizzy and cold even though she was wearing 2 sweaters. She watched the people in the restaurant through the rain-blurred window, imagining what their food must taste like. Not just the taste, but the feeling of being full, of not being hungry, of not having to think about food every single minute of every single day. "Mama," Emma whispered. "Are you okay?" Sophia didn't answer. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. Emma noticed tears sliding down her mother's cheeks, mixing with the rain that had soaked through her thin jacket during her latest failed job interview. That's when Emma made a decision. She was 7 years old, and she was tired of being helpless. Tired of watching her mother break apart piece by piece. Tired of being hungry. She would do something brave, even if it scared her. "I'm going to ask for food, Mama," Emma said softly. Sophia's head snapped toward her daughter, eyes widening in alarm. "No, mija, no. We don't beg. We don't." But Emma was already opening the car door, stepping out into the cold November rain. She heard her mother calling after her, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Because if she stopped to think about what she was doing, she'd lose her courage entirely. Marcus Wellington III had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. At 42 years old, he sat at his usual corner table in Lumiere, the restaurant he owned among his portfolio of 37 others across the country. The meal before him, a delicate construction of seared foie gras, gold leaf garnish, and some kind of reduction the chef had spent 3 hours preparing, cost $485. He'd barely touched it. Around him, his business associates discussed their latest acquisition, a chain of affordable housing complexes they planned to convert into luxury condos. The profit margins were exceptional. The hundreds of families who would be displaced were merely numbers on a spreadsheet, obstacles to be managed by the legal team. Marcus nodded at appropriate moments, signed documents when prompted, and felt absolutely nothing. He had perfected the art of feeling nothing. It was easier that way. Safer. His phone buzzed with the same message he'd been ignoring for 3 weeks. "Dad, please call me. We need to talk about Mom's anniversary. Sarah." His daughter. 23 years old now. He'd missed her college graduation last year for a merger meeting in Tokyo. Missed her birthday the year before for a conference in Dubai. When had he last actually talked to her? Really talked, not just the brief, transactional conversations about money transfers and trust funds? Marcus took a sip of his $2,000 bottle of wine and tasted nothing. When had food stopped having flavor? When had success stopped feeling like success? When had he become this hollow version of himself, going through motions that no longer meant anything? He thought about Elizabeth, his wife, dead now for 3 years. Cancer. The kind of money couldn't fix, though God knows he'd tried. He'd flown in specialists from Switzerland, bought experimental treatments from Japan, donated millions to research facilities. None of it mattered in the end. The last thing Elizabeth said to him still haunted his dreams. "Marcus, what are you doing with your life? All this money, all this power, and you're the poorest man I know. You've forgotten how to be human." He'd been angry at her then. How dare she, after everything he'd provided? The mansion in the Hamptons, the penthouse in Manhattan, the villa in Tuscany. Private jets and designer clothes and jewelry that cost more than most people's homes. How was that poverty? But now, sitting in his own restaurant surrounded by luxury he couldn't feel, Marcus finally understood what she meant. He was rich in every way that didn't matter and bankrupt in every way that did. "Mr. Wellington." His assistant, James, interrupted his thoughts. "The contracts need your signature." Marcus reached for his pen, preparing to displace another few hundred families, to add another few million to a fortune he didn't need, to continue the empty cycle of accumulation that had become his entire existence. That's when he saw her. Emma stood at the restaurant's entrance, tiny and soaked, her oversized sweater dripping puddles onto the Italian marble floor. She'd made it past the doorman only because he'd been helping an elderly woman with her umbrella. Now she stood frozen, overwhelmed by the warmth and light and overwhelming smell of food that made her head spin with longing. The restaurant manager spotted her immediately. Antonio Rodriguez had worked in high-end establishments for 20 years, and he knew how to handle situations discreetly. A homeless child was definitely a situation. "You can't be here," Antonio said firmly but not unkindly, moving toward Emma. "This is a private establishment. Where are your parents?" Emma's courage wavered. She wanted to run back to the car, to her mother, to hide her face in shame. But then her stomach cramped painfully, and she thought about Mama crying in the car, and she forced herself to speak. "Please," she whispered, her voice so small it could barely be heard over the classical music and the clinking of silverware. "Do you have any leftovers? We are really hungry. We haven't eaten in." She trailed off, realizing that all conversation in the restaurant had stopped. Every wealthy patron was staring at her. Some looked uncomfortable, averting their eyes quickly. Others looked annoyed, as if her presence was an insult to their evening. A few looked almost afraid, as if poverty might be contagious. Emma felt herself shrinking, becoming invisible again. This had been a mistake. A terrible mistake. "I'm sorry," she whispered, backing toward the door. "I'm sorry. I'll go." That's when Marcus Wellington III did something he hadn't done in years. Something spontaneous. Something that came from a part of himself he thought had died with Elizabeth. He stood up. "Wait," he said, his voice cutting through the uncomfortable silence. "Don't go." Marcus Wellington III looked at Emma Martinez, really looked at her, and saw something he'd forgotten existed: genuine need. Not the manipulative kind he dealt with every day in boardrooms, where people feigned desperation to negotiate better deals. This was real. Raw. Devastating in its simplicity. The little girl was shivering despite her 2 sweaters. Her shoes had holes in them, and her feet were red from the cold rain. She couldn't have weighed more than 40 pounds, her face gaunt in a way that no 7-year-old's face should ever be. But it was her eyes that undid him, huge, dark, and filled with a desperate hope that was already beginning to fade as she prepared to retreat back into the November rain. "Wait," Marcus heard himself say again, rising from his table. His business associates stared at him in confusion. This wasn't like Marcus. Marcus Wellington III didn't involve himself in awkward situations. He had people for that. Antonio, the manager, looked relieved. "Mr. Wellington, I'm handling this. I'll have security escort her out gently." "No," Marcus said firmly. He moved away from his table, approaching Emma slowly, the way you might approach a frightened animal. "You asked about leftovers. Is that right?" Emma nodded, unable to speak. Up close, Marcus could see she was trembling, from cold, from fear, from hunger, or perhaps all 3. Her hair was matted from the rain, and there was a bruise on her knee visible through a tear in her jeans. "What's your name?" Marcus asked softly, kneeling down so he was at her eye level. The $5,000 suit he was wearing pressed against the wet marble floor, but he didn't notice or care. "Emma," she whispered. "Emma. That's a beautiful name." Marcus felt something cracking inside his chest, something that had been frozen for so long he'd forgotten it was there. "And you're hungry." Emma nodded again. "My mama too. She's in the car. She didn't want me to come in, but she's really sad, and I thought maybe." Her voice broke. "I thought maybe if we ate something, she wouldn't be so sad anymore." Marcus felt tears burning in his eyes. Actual tears, something he hadn't experienced since Elizabeth's funeral. This child, this beautiful, brave child, wasn't even asking for herself. She was asking for her mother. He thought about his own daughter, Sarah, and realized with a jolt of shame that he couldn't remember the last time she'd come to him for help. When had she stopped thinking of him as someone who could solve her problems? When had he become just an ATM to her? A source of money but not comfort, provision but not presence? "Mr. Wellington," Antonio said nervously, "perhaps we should handle this privately. The other guests are becoming uncomfortable." Marcus looked around at the uncomfortable guests. Women in dresses that cost more than a used car, checking their diamond-studded watches impatiently. Men in designer suits, already returning to their conversations and their deals, eager to forget this unpleasant interruption to their evening. These were his people. His world. And suddenly, he hated every single one of them, including himself. "Antonio," Marcus said, standing up but keeping one hand gently on Emma's shoulder, "clear the restaurant." Antonio blinked. "Sir." "You heard me. Clear it. Now. Tell every guest their meal is complimentary tonight, and they need to leave. Immediately." "But, Mr. Wellington, we have reservations booked for months." "I don't care." Marcus's voice was steel. "Clear it. And then I want you to call every restaurant we own within a 50-mile radius. Tell them the same thing. Free meals tonight. Anyone who's hungry eats free. I don't care what it costs." The restaurant erupted in confused murmurs. His business associates looked at him as if he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. Maybe he'd been insane for years, and this was the first sane thing he'd done since Elizabeth died. "Marcus, what are you doing?" asked Gerald Chen, his CFO. "Do you have any idea what this will cost?" Marcus turned to Gerald and the others sitting at his table. Do you know what I'm worth, Gerald? Personally? Of course. Approximately $4.3 billion, last quarter's valuation. $4.3 billion, Marcus repeated, looking back down at Emma. Do you know what this little girl is worth, Gerald? Gerald looked uncomfortable. That's not. I don't understand the question. No, Marcus said quietly. You don't. None of us do. That's the problem. He raised his voice so everyone in the restaurant could hear. This child just asked me for leftovers. Leftovers. In a restaurant where we throw away hundreds of dollars worth of food every single night. In a city where I own 30 properties, half of them sitting empty as investments while people sleep in their cars. He felt Emma's hand slip into his, tiny and cold, and something inside him shattered completely. Emma, Marcus said gently, where's your mother? In the car. The blue one across the street. Emma pointed through the window at the beat-up Honda Civic. Will you go get her, please? Tell her Marcus Wellington would like to invite both of you to dinner. A real dinner. Not leftovers. Emma's eyes widened. Really? Really? Marcus pulled out his wallet and handed her a $100 bill. And Emma, take this. Go to that store on the corner first and buy yourself and your mother some warm, dry clothes. Then come back. Take your time. We'll wait. Emma stared at the bill as if it might disappear. I can't. This is too much. It's not nearly enough, Marcus said, and he meant it. Go on. We'll be here. Emma clutched the money and ran for the door, then stopped and turned back. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with tears. Thank you so much. As Emma disappeared into the rain, Marcus turned to face the restaurant full of wealthy, confused, and increasingly annoyed patrons. The piano player had stopped playing. Everyone was staring at him. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus announced, I apologize for interrupting your evening. Your meals are on the house tonight, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I have more important guests arriving. This is outrageous, huffed a woman in a fur coat. Do you know who I am? Yes, Mrs. Blackwood, I know exactly who you are. You're someone who just watched a starving child beg for food and did nothing. Just like me. Just like all of us. Marcus's voice softened. So please, go home. Look at your children. Call someone you love. Remember what it feels like to be human. Because somewhere along the way, we all forgot. The exodus began slowly, then picked up speed. Within 10 minutes, the restaurant was empty except for Marcus, Antonio, and the confused kitchen staff peeking out from behind the double doors. Antonio, Marcus said, I need you to do something for me. Of course, sir. I want you to prepare the finest meal this kitchen has ever created.
No expenses spared.
And I want you to set the table, not my usual table, but the best table in the house, the one we save for celebrities and dignitaries. Set it for 3. 3, sir. Emma, her mother, and me. Marcus paused. And Antonio. After tonight, I want you to start a new program. Every night, from now on, we feed 20 people for free. People who need it. Real people, not influencers looking for photo opportunities. People like Emma and her mother. Antonio's eyes widened. Mr. Wellington, the board will never approve. I am the board, Marcus snapped. Then, more gently, I'm sorry. That was harsh. But Antonio, Elizabeth was right. What's the point of all this if we are not making the world better? If we are not helping people? Your wife was a wise woman, sir. Yes. She was. I should have listened to her while I had the chance. Marcus looked around the empty restaurant, seeing it clearly for the first time. We are going to change things, Antonio. Starting tonight. This restaurant, all my restaurants, they're going to mean something. They are going to matter. 20 minutes later, Emma and Sophia Martinez stood at the restaurant's entrance, transformed. They wore simple but warm clothes from the discount store: jeans, sweaters, new shoes. Emma clutched her mother's hand tightly, and Sophia looked terrified. Marcus met them at the door personally. Sophia was younger than he'd expected, maybe 30, but her face was lined with worry and exhaustion. She was thin, too thin, and her eyes held the same desperate quality as her daughter's. "Mr. Wellington." Sophia's voice shook. "I don't understand. Emma said you want to have dinner with us, but that can't be right. We can't pay for anything here. I don't have any money. I can't." "Mrs. Martinez," Marcus interrupted gently. "You don't need money. You're my guests. Please, come in." He led them to the center table, the one beneath the main chandelier, the one usually reserved for visiting senators and Hollywood stars. It was set with the finest china, crystal glasses that caught the light like diamonds, and more silverware than Emma had ever seen in her life. "I don't understand," Sophia whispered again, tears streaming down her face. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus pulled out her chair, then Emma's, seating them with the same courtesy he would show any dignitary. "Because your daughter reminded me of something I'd forgotten," he said simply. "She reminded me what bravery looks like, what love looks like, what matters." He sat across from them, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Then Sophia began to cry in earnest, deep, racking sobs that she'd probably been holding back for months. Emma wrapped her arms around her mother, and Marcus had to look away, his own eyes burning.
"I'm sorry," Sophia gasped.
"I'm so sorry. We were doing okay. We were. But then my husband got sick, and the insurance didn't cover everything, and we lost our apartment, and I can't find work, and I'm trying so hard but I'm failing her. I'm failing my baby." "Mama, no," Emma said fiercely. "You're not failing. You're the best mama in the world." Marcus waited until Sophia's sobs quieted. "Mrs. Martinez, may I ask you something?" She nodded, wiping her eyes with the linen napkin. "What did you do before you lost your job?" "I worked in a textile factory. Quality control. It wasn't much, but it was steady. Then they outsourced the whole operation to Vietnam. 200 of us lost our jobs in one day. And you've been looking for work since then?" "Every day. I've applied to hundreds of places. Fast food, retail, cleaning services, anything. But everyone wants experience I don't have or education I couldn't afford, or they take one look at my address and—" She trailed off, looking ashamed. "Your address?" "We live in our car, Mr. Wellington. When employers see that on applications, they assume we are unreliable, unstable, a risk." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, not at Sophia, but at a system that had failed her so completely. A system he'd benefited from and perpetuated without question. "What would you do," Marcus asked carefully, "if you had a second chance? If someone gave you a job, a real job, with fair pay and benefits?" Sophia laughed bitterly. "That's not going to happen, Mr. Wellington. People like you don't hire people like me." "You're right," Marcus said quietly. "We don't. We should, but we don't. We are so focused on pedigrees and connections and who you know that we forget to look at who you are. What you're capable of. What you're willing to fight for." He paused. "But what if I did? What if I offered you a job right now?" Sophia stared at him. "What?" "I own a hospitality management company. We run hotels, restaurants, event venues. We are always looking for quality control managers, people who understand excellence and attention to detail. Would you be interested?" I don't understand. You don't even know me. I know you're a mother who's fighting with everything she has to protect her child. I know you're willing to swallow your pride and live in your car rather than give up. I know your daughter loves you enough to face her fears and ask for help. That tells me more than any resume ever could. The kitchen doors opened, and a parade of servers emerged carrying dishes that seemed too beautiful to eat. Each plate was a work of art, carefully constructed and presented with the precision of a museum exhibit. For Emma and Sophia, who hadn't had a proper meal in weeks, it was overwhelming. There was soup that steamed and smelled like heaven, bread so fresh it was still warm from the oven, salads with ingredients they couldn't name, and a main course of tender beef with vegetables that had been prepared with techniques that took years to master. "I can't eat this," Sophia whispered. "It's too much. It's too beautiful." "Please," Marcus said gently. "Eat. Enjoy. That's what food is for, not to be photographed for social media or picked at by people too worried about calories to appreciate it. Food is meant to nourish, to bring joy, to bring people together." Emma didn't need to be told twice. She took a tentative bite of the bread, and her eyes widened with wonder. "Mama," she breathed. "It's so good." Watching them eat, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: purpose. Each bite they took seemed to heal something inside him, as if their satisfaction was somehow feeding his starved soul. He told them about Elizabeth, about how she'd died disappointed in the man he'd become. He told them about Sarah, his daughter, and how he'd let ambition and grief create a wall between them. He talked about the emptiness of success without meaning, wealth without purpose. Sophia listened, occasionally offering quiet observations that revealed a wisdom that had nothing to do with formal education and everything to do with survival and love. Emma asked questions with the innocent directness of childhood, questions that cut straight to the heart of things in ways that made Marcus see his life from entirely new angles. "Why did you become so rich if it doesn't make you happy?" Emma asked, her mouth half full of the best meal she'd ever tasted. Marcus smiled sadly. "I thought it would. I thought if I had enough money, enough success, enough power, I'd be safe. Protected. I'd never have to feel pain or loss or fear again." "But did it work?" "No, sweetheart. It didn't work at all." "Then why did you keep doing it?" "Because I didn't know what else to do. I'd spent so long building this empire, this wall of wealth around myself, that I forgot how to be anything else. I forgot how to be human." Emma considered this seriously. "My teacher says being human means being kind. Is that what you forgot?" Marcus felt tears on his face again. "Yes. That's exactly what I forgot." As they ate, Sophia began to tell their story, the full story, not just the simplified version of hardship, but the messy, complicated truth of how quickly everything can fall apart. Her husband, Roberto, had been a construction worker. Strong, hard-working, devoted to his family. They'd been saving for a house, planning Emma's future, dreaming small but meaningful dreams. Then the diagnosis: pancreatic cancer, stage 4, with a prognosis of 6 months. Roberto had survived for 14 months, fighting with everything he had, determined to leave his family secure. But American healthcare, even with insurance, is a nightmare of copays and deductibles and treatments deemed experimental that insurance won't cover. They drained their savings in the first 3 months. Borrowed from family. Taken out loans they had no hope of repaying. When Roberto died, he left them with memories and love and $180,000 in medical debt. "They took everything," Sophia said quietly. "Our apartment, our car, our furniture. I had to declare bankruptcy. Do you know what that means, Mr. Wellington? It means every door closes. Every application gets rejected. Every chance at stability disappears." "I didn't know," Marcus admitted. "I've never had to think about medical debt or bankruptcy or what happens when the safety net fails." "Most people in your world don't," Sophia said without bitterness. "Why would you? You have the best insurance money can buy. If you get sick, you fly to Switzerland or Germany or wherever the best doctors are. You don't have to choose between medicine and food. You don't have to explain to your 7-year-old daughter why you can't afford to keep living in your home." Marcus thought about the health insurance policies he provided to his employees, the bare minimum required by law, with high deductibles and limited coverage. He thought about the times he'd complained about the cost of providing even those minimal benefits, viewing them as an expense to be minimized rather than as human beings whose lives might depend on access to care. "Emma," he said suddenly, turning to the little girl, "tell me about school. Do you still go?" Emma looked down at her plate. "Sometimes. When we have clean clothes and I can pretend everything's normal. But it's hard. The other kids can tell something's wrong. They whisper about me. And I can't concentrate when I'm hungry. The teachers get mad that I don't pay attention, but I'm trying. I'm trying so hard." Marcus's heart broke a little more. "What's your favorite subject?" Emma's face brightened slightly. "Reading. I love reading. Before everything happened, Mama would take me to the library every week, and I'd check out so many books. I'd read them all and then go back for more. The librarian knew my name. She'd save special books for me." "Do you still go to the library?" Emma shook her head. "I lost my library card when we had to leave our apartment. And we move around so much now, it's hard to get to the library. Plus, I'd have to leave Mama alone in the car, and I don't like doing that. She gets too sad when she's alone." Sophia reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand, unable to speak through her tears. Marcus pulled out his phone and typed a quick note to himself. Library card. Books. Education fund. The list was growing, and for the first time in years, he felt energized rather than exhausted. As dessert arrived, a chocolate creation that made Emma gasp with delight, Marcus's business associates began calling. First James, then Gerald, then members of the board. All of them had heard about what happened at the restaurant. All of them were concerned about his erratic behavior. Marcus ignored the first 3 calls. On the 4th, he answered. "Marcus, what the hell are you doing?" Gerald's voice was sharp with alarm. "I've been getting calls from everyone. You cleared out Lumiere. You're offering free meals at all our restaurants? Do you have any idea what this will cost?" "I don't care what it costs, Gerald." "You don't care? Marcus, we have shareholders to answer to. We have quarterly projections. We have people starving in the streets while we throw away food," Marcus interrupted. "We have families living in their cars while we keep properties empty as investment vehicles. We have children going to bed hungry while we complain about the cost of champagne service. That's what we have, Gerald." There was a long silence on the other end. "You're serious about this?" "More serious than I've been about anything in years. The board will fight you. They'll say you're having some kind of breakdown. They might try to remove you." "Let them try." Marcus looked across the table at Emma, who was savoring every bite of her chocolate dessert with an expression of pure bliss. "I have $4.3 billion, Gerald. Even if they take the companies, even if they take everything else, I still have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. And what's the point of having it if I'm not using it to make the world better?" Another pause. Then, in a softer voice, "Elizabeth would be proud of you." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I hope so." He hung up and turned back to Sophia and Emma. "I'm going to help you," he said simply. "Not just dinner, not just a job. Really help you. Get you into an apartment, get Emma into a good school, help you get back on your feet. But I need you to promise me something." Sophia looked wary. "What?" "That you'll let me. That you won't let pride or fear or disbelief get in the way. Can you do that?" Sophia's hand shook as she reached across the table and took Marcus's hands in hers. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this? We are nobody. We are nothing. We are just—" "You're not nothing," Marcus interrupted fiercely. "You're a mother fighting for her child. You're a woman who's endured more in the past year than most people endure in a lifetime, and you're still here, still fighting, still loving. You're not nothing. You're everything that matters. Marcus didn't wait until morning. That very night, still sitting at the table with Emma and Sophia, he began making calls. His personal attorney, his real estate manager, his HR director. Each conversation started the same way. I know it's late. I don't care. This is important. By midnight, he had secured a furnished 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood. Not a luxury penthouse, but a real home with a park nearby and good schools within walking distance. He'd arranged for it to be available immediately, rent-free for the first year, then at a rate Sophia could actually afford on her new salary. The job offer was real, quality control manager at his hospitality management company, with full benefits, a 401k, and a salary that would allow Sophia and Emma to live with dignity and security. Marcus made sure the HR director understood this wasn't charity disguised as employment. Sophia would be expected to work hard and perform well, but she'd be given the same opportunities and respect as any other employee. For Emma, he arranged enrollment in an excellent public school known for its support of students from diverse backgrounds. He also set up an education fund that would ensure she could go to college someday if she wanted to, free from the burden of student debt that crippled so many young people. But the most important call was to his daughter, Sarah. "Dad." Sarah answered on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep and confusion. "It's midnight. Is everything okay?" "Sarah, I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen, really listen, okay? You're scaring me. Are you sick? Did something happen?" "No, I'm not sick. But something did happen. Something important." Marcus looked across the table at Emma, who had fallen asleep with her head on her mother's shoulder, exhausted from hunger and emotion and the overwhelming experience of the evening. "I met someone tonight who reminded me of what I've been missing, what I've been doing wrong. And I want to change. I need to change." "Dad, what are you talking about?" So Marcus told her. He told her about Emma and Sophia, about the question that had brought him to his knees, about the realization that had shattered his carefully constructed world of wealth and isolation. He told her about Elizabeth's last words and how he was finally understanding what she meant. "I've been a terrible father," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought providing for you financially was enough. I thought money could substitute for time, for attention, for actually being present in your life. And I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry for every birthday I missed, every event I skipped, every time I chose work over you." Sarah was crying now. Marcus could hear it in her voice. "Dad, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I just need you to know that I'm going to change. And I'm starting by asking you, will you have breakfast with me tomorrow? Just breakfast, just us. No phones, no work, no distractions. Just a father and daughter talking. Can we do that?" "Yes," Sarah whispered. "Yes, we can do that." After he hung up, Sophia was watching him with tears streaming down her face. "You didn't have to do that. Call your daughter. Share all of that with her because of us." "Yes, I did," Marcus said gently. "Because you and Emma showed me something tonight. You showed me what real love looks like. What sacrifice looks like. What courage looks like. And you made me realize how much I've lost by forgetting those things. So thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help. Thank you for reminding me what it means to be human." Antonio had stayed late, and now he approached the table with a laptop. "Mr. Wellington, I took the liberty of calculating what it would cost to implement the free meal program you mentioned. 20 people per night, every night, across all 37 of our restaurants. And it's expensive, sir. Very expensive. Approximately $2.3 million annually." Marcus didn't even hesitate. "Do it. And Antonio. Make it 30 people per night, not 20. Antonio smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his usually professional demeanor. "It would be my honor, sir." As the night wore on, Other staff members began emerging from the kitchen. They'd heard what happened, seen the little girl and her mother, witnessed their boss, the billionaire who owned their restaurant, treating two homeless people with more dignity and respect than he'd ever shown the wealthy elite who usually filled these seats. One by one, they approached the table. A sous chef named Maria, who confessed she'd once been homeless herself after fleeing an abusive relationship. A dishwasher named Thomas, who worked 3 jobs to support his disabled sister. A server named Jennifer, who was putting herself through nursing school 1 class at a time while supporting her elderly parents. Each of them had a story. Each of them had struggled. And each of them looked at Emma and Sophia not with pity, but with recognition. "There but for the grace of God go I." "Mr. Wellington," Maria said quietly, "what you're doing tonight, it matters. More than you know. My daughter is 10 now. She's healthy and happy and safe. But 6 years ago, she looked just like this little angel here." She gestured to Emma, who was still sleeping peacefully. Hungry. Scared. Living in a shelter because her mama couldn't keep a roof over their heads. "If someone had shown us the kindness you're showing them." Her voice broke. "It would have changed everything." Marcus felt something shifting inside him, like tectonic plates rearranging themselves. This wasn't just about Emma and Sophia anymore. This was bigger. This was about all the Emmas and Sophias out there, all the people working 3 jobs and still falling short, all the families one medical emergency away from catastrophe. "Maria," he said suddenly, "how would you like to run a new program for us? A foundation, specifically focused on helping restaurant workers and hospitality employees who are facing hardship. Emergency funds, housing assistance, childcare support, whatever they need to stay stable and keep working with dignity." Maria's eyes widened. "Sir, I'm just a sous chef. I don't know anything about running a foundation." "But you know what people need. You've been there. That's more valuable than any business degree." Marcus turned to Antonio. "Set up a meeting for next week. I want to establish the Elizabeth Wellington Foundation for hospitality workers. Maria will run it, with whatever staff and budget she needs." "Elizabeth," Sophia said softly. "Your wife." Marcus nodded. "She always wanted to make a real difference. She volunteered at shelters, donated to causes, tried to get me involved. But I was too busy, too focused on making money to care about how it was spent. This is my chance to honor her memory the right way. By actually helping people, not just writing checks to feel better about myself." As 3 a.m. approached, Marcus finally called for his driver to take Sophia and Emma to their new apartment. But before they left, Emma, awakened by the activity, tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Mr. Wellington." Her voice was small and sleepy. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Anything." "Do you have any kids?" Marcus smiled sadly. "I have a daughter. Sarah. She's grown up now. Does she know how lucky she is? To have a daddy who's so nice?" The question pierced Marcus's heart. "I don't think she does, Emma. Because until tonight, I wasn't very nice. I wasn't around much. I was too busy working to spend time with her. Too busy making money to make memories." Emma frowned, processing this with the serious consideration children give to important matters. "That's sad. My daddy died, and I wish so much I could have more time with him. If I could have just one more day, I wouldn't care if we had any money at all. I just want to hug him and hear his voice." Marcus knelt down so he was eye level with her again. "You're right, Emma. You're absolutely right. And do you know what? Tomorrow I'm having breakfast with Sarah. Because of you. Because you reminded me what's really important." Emma threw her arms around his neck, hugging him with the unself-conscious affection of a child who had just been fed and was feeling safe for the first time in months. Marcus hugged her back, and over her shoulder, he saw Sophia crying again, but these were different tears. These were tears of hope. "Thank you," Sophia mouthed silently. Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. As they prepared to leave, Marcus pressed something into Sophia's hand, a credit card. "This is connected to an account I've set up for you. There's $50,000 in it to start. Use it for whatever you need: clothes, furniture, Emma's school supplies, a reliable car. It's not charity, Sophia. Consider it back pay for all the work you're about to do and an investment in Emma's future." Sophia stared at the card as if it might burn her. "I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not nearly enough. But it's a start." Marcus gently closed her fingers around the card. "Please. Let me help. Let me do this one good thing." As the driver pulled away with Sophia and Emma, Marcus stood on the rain-slick sidewalk and watched the taillights disappear into the early morning darkness. Around him, New York City was beginning to stir. Delivery trucks rumbling past, early shift workers heading to their jobs, homeless people emerging from doorways where they'd spent another cold November night. He saw them now. Really saw them. Not as problems to be avoided or statistics to be managed, but as people. Human beings with stories and struggles, with families they loved and dreams they'd had to defer. How many times had he walked past people like Emma and Sophia without really seeing them? How many opportunities to help, to connect, to be human had he missed? His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah: "Can't sleep. Too excited for breakfast. I love you, Dad." Marcus smiled through his tears and typed back, "I love you too, sweetheart. More than you know. See you soon." The video had gone viral within hours. Someone in the restaurant that night had recorded part of what happened. Emma asking for leftovers, Marcus clearing the restaurant, the beginning of their dinner together. It had been viewed 47 million times, shared across every social media platform, and sparked a national conversation about wealth inequality, compassion, and what it means to be truly rich. Marcus had been ambivalent about the attention at first. He hadn't done it for publicity. But his PR team convinced him to use the platform to amplify the message, and he'd given several interviews explaining what that night had taught him and announcing the various programs he was launching. The Elizabeth Wellington Foundation for Hospitality Workers had already helped 237 families in just 6 months. Maria had proven to be a brilliant administrator, her personal experience guiding the foundation's work with wisdom and empathy that no Ivy League MBA could match. The free meal program was feeding an average of 1,400 people per night across all the restaurants. Antonio had pioneered a system for partnering with local homeless shelters and social service agencies to identify people in need and connect them with not just food, but also job training, housing assistance, and other support services. But beyond the programs and the press coverage, something more fundamental had changed. Marcus Wellington III had remembered how to be human. He still ran his businesses, but differently now. He'd implemented living wages across all his companies, comprehensive healthcare coverage, on-site childcare at his hotels, and college scholarship programs for employees' children. His profit margins had decreased slightly, but employee retention and productivity had skyrocketed. Turns out, people work better when they're not constantly worried about how to feed their families. His board had initially resisted, threatening to remove him. But Marcus had called their bluff, offering to buy them out if they couldn't support the new direction. Most had backed down. The few who hadn't had been replaced by people who understood that sustainable business meant taking care of your workers, not just your shareholders. Marcus sat in the audience at Emma's school, watching her receive an award for academic excellence. She'd not only caught up with her peers but had exceeded them, her love of reading blossoming now that she had regular meals, a stable home, and a mother who wasn't consumed by worry and despair. Sophia sat beside him, looking radiant in ways that had nothing to do with the nice clothes or the fact that she'd gained back the weight she'd lost during their homeless months. She glowed with the confidence of someone who had climbed out of hell and knew, with absolute certainty, that she would never go back. "She wants to be a teacher," Sophia whispered to Marcus as Emma climbed the stage to accept her award. "She says she wants to help other kids who are struggling, the way her teachers help her this year." Marcus felt pride swell in his chest, Not the empty pride of business accomplishments, but something real and warm. She'll be amazing at it. Emma spotted them in the audience and waved enthusiastically, her smile so bright it seemed to light up the entire auditorium. Marcus waved back, marveling at the transformation. This was the same child who, 6 months ago, had been standing in the rain begging for leftovers. Now she was thriving, her potential unleashed simply because someone had given her the basic necessities that every child deserves. After the ceremony, Emma ran to them and threw her arms around Marcus. She did this every time she saw him now, hugged him with unrestrained affection. It had been startling at first. Marcus wasn't used to physical affection. But now he treasured these hugs, each one a reminder of why all the changes he'd made were worth it. Did you see? Did you see? Emma was practically bouncing with excitement. I got the Reading Award and the Citizenship Award. I saw, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. Marcus knelt down, pulling a wrapped package from his bag. This is for you. Emma tore off the wrapping to reveal a leather-bound journal with her name embossed in gold. It's beautiful. It's for your stories. Your teacher told me you've been writing wonderful stories in class. I thought you should have a special place to keep them. Emma flipped through the blank pages, her eyes shining. I'm going to write a story about you. About the nice man who helped me and Mama when we were sad. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I'd be honored to read it. That evening, Marcus hosted a dinner at Lumiere, not for wealthy clients or business associates, but for the people who mattered. Sarah was there with her boyfriend, a kindergarten teacher named David whom Marcus actually liked after taking the time to get to know him. Sophia and Emma, of course. Antonio and his wife. Maria and her daughter. And a dozen other people whose lives had intersected with Marcus's over the past 6 months. People he'd helped, people who'd help him, people who'd reminded him what it meant to be human. The table was full of laughter and conversation, people from different worlds and backgrounds coming together over good food and genuine connection. This was what the restaurant was supposed to be about, Marcus realized. Not exclusivity and pretension, but community and nourishment in every sense of the word. I'd like to make a toast, Marcus said, standing and raising his glass. The conversation quieted, everyone turning to listen. 6 months ago, I was the richest man I'd ever been and the poorest person I knew. I had billions in the bank and nothing in my heart. Then a brave little girl asked me a simple question. Do you have any leftovers? And that question changed everything. He looked at Emma, who grinned at him. Emma, you saved my life that night. You reminded me what courage looks like, what love looks like, what really matters. You showed me that the only wealth that counts is the wealth we share, the connections we make, the lives we touch. Marcus turned to Sophia. And Sophia, you taught me about dignity and resilience. You showed me that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up, again and again, for the people you love. You've become not just an invaluable employee, but a dear friend. Thank you. He looked at Sarah next, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah, my beautiful daughter, thank you for giving me another chance. For letting me back into your life. For teaching me that it's never too late to change, never too late to become the father, the person I should have been all along. Finally, he addressed the whole table. All of you have taught me something over these past months. You've taught me that we are not meant to live in isolation, hoarding our resources and protecting ourselves from each other. We are meant to live in community, supporting each other, lifting each other up. The wealth I have isn't really mine, it's ours. And it's only valuable if we use it to make the world better. So here's my toast, to Emma, who asked for leftovers and received so much more. To Sophia, who never gave up. To Sarah, who forgave me. To all of you, who reminded me what it means to be human. And to the journey we are on together, not towards more wealth or more success, but towards more connection, more compassion, more love. That's the only journey worth taking. Here, here, everyone chorused, glasses clinking around the table. As the evening wore on, Marcus found himself in conversation with David, Sarah's boyfriend. "Can I ask you something?" David said. "What really changed that night?" "I've read the interviews, seen the videos, but there's something I don't understand. Why did you stop for Emma when you'd probably walked past hundreds of people in need before?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "Honestly, I don't know if I can fully explain it. Maybe it was timing. I was already feeling empty, already questioning everything. Maybe it was her innocence, the directness of her request. Maybe it was seeing Sophia in the car, recognizing the kind of maternal love that sacrifices everything." He paused, searching for the right words. "But I think, ultimately, it was because she asked. She made it impossible for me to pretend I didn't see her, didn't hear her, didn't know she existed. She demanded to be seen as a human being, not a problem to be avoided. And once I really saw her, really looked at her, I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't go back to the comfortable numbness I'd been living in." David nodded slowly. "That's what I try to teach my kindergartners. That everyone deserves to be seen, to be heard, to be valued. It sounds simple, but it's revolutionary." "It is revolutionary," Marcus agreed. "And it shouldn't be. It should be basic human decency. But we've built a society where it's revolutionary to treat each other with kindness and dignity. That's what needs to change." Late that night, after all the guests had gone home, Marcus stood alone in the empty restaurant. In his hand was the journal Emma had given him as a thank you gift, her story about the nice man who helped me and Mama when we were sad. He read it slowly, savoring every misspelled word and awkwardly constructed sentence. But it was the ending that made him cry. The nice man thought he was helping us, Emma had written in her careful, 7-year-old handwriting. But really we were helping him. Because he was lost and we help him find his way home. Not to a house but to his heart. And now he smiles for real and everybody can tell he's not sad anymore. The End. By Emma Martinez. Marcus closed the journal and looked around the restaurant, the same space where, 6 months ago, he'd felt nothing but emptiness. Now it felt full, bursting with meaning and purpose and connection. The tables that had once seated only the wealthy now welcomed everyone. The kitchen that had once produced food to be photographed now nourished bodies and souls. The business that had once been just about profit now stood for something that mattered. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Thank you for tonight, Dad. I love you so much. This is the father I always wanted. I'm so glad he finally showed up." Another text, this one from Sophia. "Emma is asleep with her award certificates on her nightstand. She asked me to tell you good night and that she loves you. From both of us, thank you for giving us our lives back." Marcus typed responses to both, his heart full in a way that had nothing to do with money or success or power. He thought about Elizabeth, wondering if she could see him now, if she knew that he'd finally understood what she'd been trying to tell him. "I get it now," he whispered to her memory. "You were right. All this time, you were right. The only wealth that matters is the wealth we give away. The only success that counts is lifting others up. The only power worth having is the power to make someone's life better." He locked up the restaurant and stepped out into the New York City night. The streets were quieter now, but not empty. There were still people sleeping in doorways, still families living in their cars, still children going to bed hungry. He couldn't help them all. No one person could. But he could help some. He could make a difference, one Emma at a time, one Sophia at a time, one act of compassion at a time. And maybe, if enough people did the same, if enough people chose to see each other, really see each other, and respond with kindness instead of indifference, maybe things could actually change. Marcus Wellington III walked home through the city streets, past the homeless and the hurting and the struggling, and he saw them all. Every single one. And while he couldn't help everyone that night, he made a silent promise to each person he passed. "I see you. You matter. And I will do what I can." Because a little girl with nothing had asked him for leftovers and received his humanity in return. And that exchange, That simple, sacred exchange had saved them both. This story, though fictionalized, reflects a truth that we all need to hear. True wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the lives we touch and the love we share. Every day, there are people around us who are struggling. People one accident, one illness, one lost paycheck away from losing everything. They walk the same streets we do. They ride the same buses. They dream, love, and hurt just like us. The question isn't whether they exist. They do, in every city, in every community. The question is whether we'll see them. Whether we'll respond with compassion or indifference. Whether we'll build walls to protect ourselves, or bridges to connect with each other. Emma's simple question, do you have any leftovers? Wasn't just about food. It was a cry for humanity. And in answering that question, Marcus Wellington didn't just feed a hungry child. He rediscovered his soul. Because sometimes, the ones who have nothing remind us of everything we've forgotten. And in giving, we receive far more than we ever give away. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more life-changing stories. May it inspire you to see the Emmas and Sophias in your own life, and to respond with the courage, compassion, and love they deserve. This is The Hungry Little Girl and the Billionaire. A story of humanity, redemption, and the kind of wealth that can't be measured in money.